Every man who married her became rich, then disappeared. The girl the village refused to see. They said fate speaks early to those it plans to wound deeply. In Igbara-Oke, whispers travel like shadows, soft and deadly. Morayo's destiny was
She
announced the
looks
day
so
she was
weak.
born, quietly,
The
without drums or
spirits do not
celebration.
favor
No
this. She
spirit marked
looks
her,
so
no
weak.
deformity turned heads,
The
and yet
spirits do
cruelty
not
found her.
favor this.
Children called her names, sharper than knives. Women eyed her with a mixture of pity and disgust, as if her existence questioned their worth. Men passed her as if she were smoke, a ghost too thin to touch, too unremarkable to notice. Even in this silence, Morayo learned to armor herself. She moved along dusty paths before sunrise, fetching water while avoiding reflections that would remind her of her isolation. Her hands hardened in the cassava fields, humming songs only the earth could hear. Her loneliness was profound, yet her heart refused bitterness. She did not crave wealth, she did not seek revenge. She longed for a love that required no permission from beauty, a love that could see her soul even if the village could not. One night, under a roof pierced by wind, her mother whispered a secret that would define Morayo's life. Death waited quietly outside their hut, and with a voice barely stronger than breath, she revealed, "Any man who marries you will rise beyond poverty." It was a blessing, meant as protection, but became a cage. Morayo buried this knowledge with her mother beneath soil and silence, carrying a heavy destiny she never asked for nor wanted. In Igbara-Oke, beauty was currency. Women were praised for curve before character, glow before goodness. Morayo had none of it. Suitors avoided her, hot as if plague lingered within. Even men desperate for wives chose loneliness over her presence. Yet she waited, stubborn, for a love that could see beyond skin, unaware that the village watched her story unfold with eyes hungry for drama and gossip. Who walked towards her? The new harvest festival arrived with drums that shook the earth and colors that swallowed the sky. Igbara-Oke erupted into a symphony of laughter, music and firelight. Women danced in layers of clothes that shimmered like water. Men paraded weight in smiles and gold bracelets. Morayo stood at the edge of the celebration, a shadow among vibrant hues. Feeling the joy she could not touch, every laugh around her was a reminder that she did not belong. Then everything shifted. From the crowd, a man stepped towards her. Aderemi, known for quiet strength and artistry of his canoes, walked with steady hands and calm eyes. The festival's noise faltered around him, whispers rising like smoke. Some laughed, expecting humiliation. Others waited, tense for rejection. But he simply smiled at her. "Good evening," he said, voice low, steady, unafraid. Morayo turned, trembling. "Are you speaking to me?" "Yes," he replied. "I have wanted to see you for a long time." The moon climbed, their conversation deepened, and the festival child became distant memory. Aderemi listened without judgment, without flinching at her flaws, without succumbing to the village mockery. Night after night, their bond grew not with promises, not with magic, but with a quiet love that defied expectation. When they married, the village reacted with disbelief. Women whispered about charms, men muttered enchantment. None believed a sincere heart could choose Morayo. Soon, the impossible happened. Aderemi's canoe business flourished beyond imagination. Orders flowed from distant rivers. Traders arrived from foreign lands, and wealth clung to him as if Morayo's silent blessing had awakened fate itself. Mockery twisted into envy, and Morayo, who had once been invisible, became a symbol of destiny's strange mercy and cruel irony. Love had awakened a sleeping power, and the village would never forget it. Thunder tore the sky in dark streaks, wind shredded roofs, and carried fear through every mud hut. Morayo awoke to an emptiness that silenced her heartbeat. Aderemi was gone. The mat beside her was cold. The door hung open. Not a footprint, not a drop of blood, not a word, only absence so heavy it pressed against her chest, suffocating hope. The village erupted in chaos. Some blamed spirits, Others murmured that envy had grown teeth. Morayo blamed none, but her heart whispered that her eyes refused to see. He was alive somewhere, yet as years crawled by, she faced a cruel pattern. Men came, not with love, but with gifts and hunger for fortune. She refused them, until loneliness eroded her resistance. One by one, husbands rose to wealth and vanished, leaving despair like smoke in their wake. Tired of carrying fate like a curse, Morayo ventured into the forest under the moon's cold eye. Shadows moved in the wind, and an ancient woman emerged, a figure of silence and power. She handed Morayo a garment that shimmered as if woven from starlight. "When you wear this," the woman whispered, "you will become what the world worships, but never remove it." Before question could escape her lips, the woman vanished into the night. By morning, Morayo was transformed, beauty incarnate. The power was intoxicating, but it came at a cost. With each admiring glance, a seed of destruction grew. The world she had longed to touch now sought to consume her. Beauty, she learned, was a weapon, and she was its unwilling soldier. Men fell to their knees at her sight. Fear and desire intertwined, creating chaos in the streets. Morayo chose Chief Salami, the richest man in Igbara-Oke, who bowed as if her glance alone could crumble kingdoms. Within weeks, his empire disintegrated. Cattle died mysteriously, land vanished. His mind teetered on madness. Panic gripped the village, but still they came, drawn by a force they did not understand. Greed is louder than wisdom. Men believed their exceptions. Women tried to imitate Morayo, yet fell into despair at their own limit. The village had become a theater of consequences, each citizen a witness to beauty's merciless judgment. Then a voice echoed through the square, familiar, gentle, "Aderemi, Aderemi alive." He stepped from shadow into light, telling a story of betrayal, kidnapping, and survival. Morayo's heart recognized him instantly. Her power had been a shield and a trap. The garment that granted beauty and chaos had been a punishment for the villagers' greed, not a gift for love. She returned to the forest to plead with the old woman. "This power was never for love," the woman said, her voice cutting through the night. "It is a warning, a punishment for those blinded by desire." Morayo burned the garment, the brilliance, the terror, the control gone. She became herself once more, and in the quiet that followed, Aderemi embraced her. No magic, no wealth, no fear, only love, raw and unyielding. The village froze the morning Morayo appeared again. Men dropped baskets of yams and cassava. Women gasped. Children stopped mid-step, all eyes drawn as if by invisible strings. The shimmer of her beauty was unbearable, yet it carried a weight no one could name. Whisper rose, "She is a curse or a queen." Morayo's gaze moved slowly over the square, unblinking as if measuring every heartbeat, every greed-stained thought. She chose Chief Salami, the wealthiest man in Igbara-Oke. Pride swelled in him at her glance. Yet within weeks, the world he had built unraveled. Cattle fell dead in the fields. Lands that had fed generations became barren overnight. Madness whispered at his temple. The village watched in terror and awe. Greed had been punished before, yet they still came, unable to resist the lure of fortune. Morayo's beauty had become both a weapon and a mirror, reflecting every secret desire, every unspoken corruption, and punishing it with a precision that left no one untouched. Even the most hardened men fell to their knees at her presence, while women wept quietly in corners, realizing that beauty, when borrowed from the cosmos, was a force beyond their control. Morayo walked through the streets silently, each step a ripple of power, each glance a judgment. No one dare speak to her unless he allowed it. And yet, despite the fear and chaos she wielded unknowingly, a quiet sorrow followed her. She had become the thing the village worshipped, and in worship, danger lurked. It was an evening when the moon hung low, bleeding silver across the rooftops. that the familiar voice called her name, Aderemi, alive. Standing in the town square, his eyes carry storms of years lost, betrayal endure, and love unwavering. The villagers gasp, unsure whether to flee or bow, while Morayo's heart pounded with a rhythm only he could set. He told his story with a voice tempered by suffering. Kidnapped by Kule, abandoned in the forest, surviving hunger, illness, and despair. Hunters had found him, tended his wounds, and finally, through sheer will and love, he had returned. Morayo listened silently, her own emotions, a storm she could not contain. Every word he spoke cut through the weight of her beauty, reminding her that what she had been given was never a gift. It was a test, a warning, a mirror reflecting greed. The villagers, once consumed with envy, now fell into awe, realizing that love had endured where weight and magic could not. Aderemi stepped closer, his hand reaching for hers. Morayo knew, with absolute certainty, that her borrowed beauty could have destroyed him, and she could not have allowed it. She returned her gaze to the forest, where the old woman awaited. The forest breathed around her, leaves whispering secrets, shadows twisting in anticipation. The old woman stood, the embodiment of silence and authority, watching Morayo's approach. This power was never for love, she said, voice sharp like a river's edge. It is punishment for greed, not a blessing for the heart. Morayo held the garment, its starlight shimmering like trapped fire. Every inch of its weave pulsed with temptation. Yet she knew what must be done. With a deep breath that shook her shoulders and filled her chest with both sorrow and courage, she set it ablaze. Flames licked the night sky, consuming not just fabric, but the power that had brought both fear and fascination to Igbara-Oke. Beauty, she realized, was meaningless if it demanded the suffering of others. When the final ember faded, she stood as herself once more, ordinary in appearance yet extraordinary in spirit. Aderemi embraced her without hesitation, without fear, without need of magic or words. Together they left the village quietly, walking along the moonlight path as if the world itself had exhaled in relief. Behind them, Igbara-Oke remained, a village forever changed, taught that beauty and power are hollow without integrity, and that love alone is the force that can endure. Some blessings are traps, some beauty is borrowed, and some destinies only break when love refuses to be greedy. Morayo and Aderemi walk into a life built on trust, patience, and truth, the very things the village had forgotten. What would you have done if you were Morayo? Could you resist power that promised desire but demanded destruction? Could love survive where greed once thrived? Share your thoughts in the comment below. Like this story if it moved you. Subscribe and watch more unforgettable African folk tales, because every tale carries a lesson and every lesson deserves to be remembered.